Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Let me start with some macro thoughts. Pedro da Costa on Twitter. China's economy is growing at just 2.9%. This is an estimate from Lombard Street, and I think that's about right, frankly. I was referring to this severally in August, I think, when I wrote about China's on a number of occasions, and I quoted an IMF official who said it's totally premature to speak of a crisis in China. And I said, in my experience, when policymakers make these kind of pronouncements, it is exactly because there is a crisis. At the moment, none of us can read China, said the CEO of Glencore, and I said, I can, and it is going to get a lot worse, I'm afraid. And I said the further problem is that no one believes the data either. This moment when the market stops suspending its disbelief is seriously a dangerous one for policymakers. Home thoughts, because Leila was talking to me about Raymond Carver. I got some Raymond Carver quotes. And did you get what you wanted from this life? Even so, I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. I could hear my heart beating. I could hear everyone's heart. I could hear the human noise we sat there making. Not one of us moving, not even when the room went dark. Know that feeling. I've crossed some kind of invisible line. I feel as if I've come to a place I never thought I'd have to come to, and I don't know how I got here. It's a strange place. It's a place where a little harmless dreaming and then some sleepy early morning talk has led me into considerations of death and annihilation. Finally, what good are insights? They only make things worse. He did have a drink problem, I believe. Quartz tweeted, Taiwan's president will meet China's president for the first time ever. That's a pretty big step, isn't it? Be interesting to see how that develops. Southeast Asian ministers cancel a joint accord amid South China Sea hostility. Territorial disputes in the South China Sea have poisoned a meeting of Southeast Asian defense ministers, with officials cancelling plans for a joint statement traditionally issued at the end of the summit. US delegates said there was no accord at the meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations after China demanded the statement omit reference to the South China Sea, where it has overlapping claims with the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Brunei. Understandably, a number of Asian countries felt that was inappropriate. It reflects the divide China's reclamation and militarization in the South China Sea has caused in the region. This was an unnamed US official. Representatives accompanying US Defense Secretary Ash Carter to the summit in Malaysia argued it would be better to cancel the ceremony rather than leave out the contentious point. The naval corridor is an important shipping route for roughly £3.17 trillion worth of trade. I concluded by saying it's a tinderbox, and both the US and China have a match and seem to be on a trajectory where they want to prove to the other that they are ready, willing, and able to throw that match. Let me put up a photograph of delegates posing for a group photo before the opening of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and another photograph of US Navy sailors participating in a medical training exercise on the deck of the USS Larsen with the Seahawk helicopter in the South China Sea. From Reuters, Africa, prosecutors ask court to convict South Africa's Oscar Pistorius of murder. I think it's really a prima facie case of that, isn't it? He already had a hardcore Islamist constituency, and to that he managed to rope in a thick slice of extreme nationalist voters. Erdogan, however, has not reached his final destination. He is only ending Act 3 in a 5-act drama. Does not have to face any elections till 2019, and 4 years is a long time in politics. He went sharp right and won. But at what price, we shall find out subsequently. Let me put up a photograph of him, which was posted on October the 30th by the Turkish presidency. And then this photograph, Hossein Derakşan. This large billboard, the story of a flag, is now on display in a square in central Tehran. Going back to the Metrojet Airbus passenger jet which crashed in the Sinai Desert, apparently moments before it did, unusual sounds were heard from within the cockpit, then a flash of light was detected in the sky by American satellites. While the precise cause of the crash remains a mystery, the absence of a distress call from the plane's pilots and uncharacteristic sounds heard from inside the plane just before it plunged to the ground may indicate that whatever happened took place suddenly and without warning. An unnamed US defense official told NBC News in the US that any speculation about a missile striking the plane was off the table. In his view, he suggested that the plane disintegrated at a very high altitude when, as the infrared satellite indicates, there was an explosion of some kind. International markets 2-year Bund versus US Treasury spread has increased to 108 basis points, which is the widest since 2006, and this is part of what is supporting the recent dollar strength. The benchmark 10-year note stood at 2.21%, not far from a 1.5-month peak of 2.225%. Yields went up, which helped the dollar ahead of US payrolls data later in the week. Let's move on to the currency markets. The euro is now at 109.35, and Mario Draghi reiterated that further easing was on the table for December. Dollar index 97.24, a 2.5-month high of 97.818 from October 28th seems to be the target. Japanese yen 121.08, Swissy 0.9918. Pound 154.21, Aussie 0.7202, and it was interesting that the central bank, and I quote, prospects for an improvement in economic conditions had firmed a little over recent months, so not entirely bearish. India rupee 65.575, South Korean won 1131.89, the Real 376.89. We were above 4 not too long ago. Egyptian pound 802.98, and the rand is 13.73. Let me put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index, and bond yields are currently supporting the move higher. Euro dollar, I'll put up a 3-month chart of that as well. Draghi is keeping the euro on the back foot. David Ingalls, all is well in the world. New Zealand stocks at a fresh record high. Asian markets have rebounded strongly of late. Gold is last trading at 11.20. We stopped ourselves out at 11.55, you'll recall. Crude oil has had a little pop higher, and NYMEX is at 48.28. Brent just shy of 51. But this is a well-defined range that we've been in. Probably push on a little bit higher, but I don't see it being able to hold. And then Bloomberg luxury in the changing art world. Half the works in New York auctions next month have already sold. And this is basically where art buyers or sellers are able to demand that their art is underwritten at a particular price by the auction houses. I'll put up an Andy Warhol. Sub-Saharan Africa, Uganda decides was a hashtag that flew around yesterday, and that was President Museveni getting the nomination. It was really a foregone conclusion. This is probably the election next year. This year's survey, this is Ernst & Young, reveals that investor perceptions of Africa reached the lowest since 2011, and I've been referencing this in several articles. The interesting point was 31% of respondents expect agriculture to drive growth in Africa over the next 2 years. Zambia boosted interest rates to 15.5% in the course, borrowing rates for companies is about 30. It's a very, very difficult situation for real companies to manage. I like this tweet: the lights of Johannesburg brighten up the South African sunset so beautifully. South African all shares up 8.65% so far this year, outperformed nearly all of sub-Saharan Africa this year. MTN has written to authorities in Nigeria asking for leniency. And requesting a review of a $5.2 billion fine imposed on the telecoms provider. MTN sent a copy of the letter addressed to the telecommunications regulator to Nigeria's presidency, the source said. Their yields on bonds due in November 2024 rose 28 basis points to 6.17%, an all-time high. Dollar Rand, I'll put up a 6-month chart, kind of no man's land for now. President Sisi's visiting the United Kingdom, so I found this photograph of him being warmly welcomed by the Abu Dhabi Crown Prince. Look, I'm of the view that he did rescue Egypt from the clutches of the Muslim Brotherhood, who were really more incompetent and clueless than anything else, just in time. But I do not believe he had to be so hard-nosed with his opponents and painted in such an apocalyptic fight. The Egyptian pound at just over 8, Egyptian stock market down 16.73% this year, Nigerian all share down 16.17% this year. Nasreen Seria tweeted, "This chart shows you why the Nigerian government's finances are at risk." Revenue is down 57% in June from just a year ago. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 10.91% year to date. Kenya, we've learned, received a $600 million loan from 3 banks, and this was expected. The loan, I think, is a near-term silver bullet for the Treasury and has a 2-year tenor. It's admittedly kicking the can down the road because the real challenge is the recurrent expenditure side at a time when revenues are falling because the economy is slowing. But let me explain to you what I think has happened. The government was looking to draw down 221 billion shillings from the domestic bond market in its full-year forecast. But there was a standoff at the OK Corral. The government, for a long period, rejected a lot of offers in the T-bill space because it considered them too high, and it ended up in a 3-month period paying down 61 billion shillings of T-bills. Now, when you take that pay down of 61 billion and you consider and divide it by 4, maybe 221, you're coming up with another 50. You can see how there's been 110 billion shillings swing. And it is that swing which I think amplified the credit crunch. Therefore, 60 billion shillings should go a long way towards compensating for that swing and ease interest rates in the domestic markets in the near term. I would immediately convert the dollars into shillings, which had the effect of bringing the shilling back into double digits, and essentially pump that liquidity to work in the domestic market to bring down interest rates. Therefore, this loan is a near-term silver bullet for the Treasury. Safaricom will report first half results before the market opens tomorrow morning. And just to give you a closing price, 14.45. Price earnings ratio 18.062. Full year profit before tax expanded 31.9%. So we're going to be looking for this as a bellwether stock of the stock market. The Kenya shilling is around 102. I think that can strengthen because of the increased inflows. Nairobi all share firmed 0.25%. It's down 15.73% year to date, and 1.14% above its 2015 low. NSE 20, however, closed at a 39-month low. It's down 25.09% this year. Canada's Octant is buying Afrin Oil, Kenya and Tanzania as assets. I've already given you an explanation about the loan and how I think it could be transformative for the interest rate posture. And just to confirm that Safaricom was heavily traded yesterday, 13.951 million shares, firmed 0.69%, big day tomorrow. Banking sector's been under significant sell-side pressure of late as investors, I believe, started to factor much higher NPLs into their valuation models after the exponential surge in interest rates. My view is that interest rates have now passed their apogee, and therefore the likes of Kenya Commercial Bank look very cheap indeed. KCB is trading on a P handle, on a P which has a 6 handle. I think that's really overcooked. Bamburi Cement was very strong, up 5% to close at 168. KPLC weak, has fallen 10.66% over 2 seconds. And Hervé, who's an investor in the stock market and a friend, was raising a number of queries with the financial statements, and I'll have to go back and have a look at what he was saying. And obviously this price reaction might well be around that. But also there's been a big negative social media campaign, which hasn't been helpful, and it shows that there is a cause and effect now, which is quite extraordinary when you think we're right on the frontier. Once again, thank you for stopping by.